Welcome back to the Breaking Blue Silence podcast. I'm Damon Cole, a former Texas peace officer with 21 years of experience. And on this podcast, I share the stories that most cops won't and can't talk about. The truth behind the badge, both the good and the bad. Today, I want to share one of my experiences when I was still on the job back in March of 2019. At that time, I was assigned to the Fort Worth Police Department, South Division, as a neighborhood police officer or an NPO. Now, I'll get into the details about the NPO role and what an NPO officer is and what they actually do on a separate episode. But on this day, I was on patrol when I noticed a disturbance call holding near my beat. No other officers were available, so I went ahead and asked dispatch to assign it to me, and I would advise them if I needed a cover officer or not. Now, to have you have a better understanding, whenever we go to any kind of disturbance, our first responsibility is always to make sure no crime is taking place. After that, it's about doing everything we can to calm things down, resolve whatever issue brought us there in the first place. Now, here's where I see a problem, in my opinion. Some officers approach everything they do in a very black and white way. And what I mean by that is they don't show compassion or empathy. They act like robots. But in reality, law enforcement isn't supposed to be cut and dry. There's a lot of gray area, and every officer has discretion on how they handle a situation. If they tell you they don't, they're lying. Take traffic stops for an example. Not everyone you pull over needs to get a citation. Officers have the choice to either write you a ticket or give you a warning. Depending on the circumstances, that discretion is part of their job, and it can make a big difference on how the community sees us. But I'll get into this more when I do an episode about traffic stops, what the officer is doing, and what you should or shouldn't do during a traffic stop, and why those encounters sometimes feel very tense. Now, when I got to the apartment, I met with a teenager named Ramaiah and her mom. Now, I spoke with each of them separately, got them calmed down, and here's what I learned. The day before, Ramaiah had tried to cut her own hair, and it didn't turn out the way she wanted. So the next day when she went to school, some of her classmates at Southwest High School started hating on her, giving her a hard time about the way her hair looked. And we all know teenagers and adults can be very hateful and mean at times, when there's no need for that. But because of the grief she was getting, Ramaiah decided to skip school and she went home. Now, I can understand that given the circumstances. But when her mom came home from work early and found her there, they got into a very heated argument that ended up with the mom calling the police. Now, I quickly learned there was no father figure in the picture, and I could see right away that Ramaiah was a good teenager who just made a bad choice. So I sat there and I built up a rapport with her, and I made her a promise. With her mom's approval, if she went back to school, she listened to her mom and her teachers, and she behaved and she did what she needed to do and was doing good. In a month, I would come back and see her. And if she was doing all that, I would take her to get her hair done and I would pay for it. So a month later, I called her mom to check in. She told me Ramaiah had been doing great and she was excited for me to visit. So I went ahead and went up to Southwest High School and I pulled Ramaiah out of class. Her face lit up when she saw me and it was priceless. Reasons like that is why I love doing what I do as a police officer. But as I was sitting there in the hallway, me and her are talking, and this is during class, a group of kids walk past us, and they do a little video, and they put us on Snapchat, and they said, "Look at Ramaiah snitching to the police." Now, when I learned about this, it really bothered me, because it showed the stigma there is about even talking to law enforcement. And it shouldn't be that way. Just because you deal with a cop is not something bad. So I told Ramaiah the next day that I would come pick her up from school and take her to get her hair done. Again, I went ahead and double checked with her mom, made sure I had her blessing, which I did. I even went ahead and scheduled a salon appointment. The next day, I showed up at her school in full uniform. As I'm walking to the front door, I decided to record a short video explaining how I met Ramaiah and what I was doing there, because I wanted people to see that talking to the police doesn't always mean something negative. Think about it. Most people only encounter cops in bad situations. Traffic stops, we're pulling you over, you've been in a car accident, you've been a victim of a crime, God forbid we're arresting you for something. And those are not positive interactions. So it makes you have a negative image about the police. And I wanted to change that narrative and show a different side of policing. Because you got to remember, police are no different than anybody else. So I took Ramaiah to the beauty supply store and I let her pick out her hair that she wanted for her appointment. Then I took her to the salon, where a stylist named Latrice started working on her hair. We spent hours there while she was getting her hair done. And during that time, I had some really good and deep, important conversations with Ramaiah. And I remember asking Ramaiah, I said, honestly, what do you think about the police? And I said, not including me, not including my encounter with you. And she told me straight up she didn't like them. And I asked her why. I said, did you have any interactions with the police? And she didn't. The only interaction she had ever seen with the police had been on social media. And that's where she got her negative image of the police. And I didn't want that. So I told her, I said, this is the truth. There are bad cops out there. Some believe the badge gives them power to do whatever they want when they want. But that's not true policing. Respect is earned. It's all about how you talk to people and how you treat them. I asked her to promise me that she would never judge a book by its cover. Wait until you actually deal with that person or that officer, and then you decide what kind of person they are. And she promised me she would do that. So several hours later, Latrice finished Ramaiah's hair, and it looked incredible. I went ahead and paid for it, and I asked Ramaiah if she was hungry, and she said yes. So I said, girl, I will take you to get steak, lobster, whatever you want, you tell me, I'll take you to get it. So she picked McDonald's. I said, seriously, I'll take you to get whatever you want. And again, she said McDonald's. So I said, okay. So I took her to McDonald's off of West Reisinger Road. That is in South Fort Worth. That was on my beat at the time. So when we walked in, I noticed Ramaiah seemed embarrassed to be seen with me in uniform. I looked around to see why she was feeling that way, and I noticed 4 teenage girls sitting at a table staring at us. After I ordered her food, I went over and I introduced myself to these 4 teenagers. And they were very shocked that I even came up to them and started talking to them. I asked if I could sit down at the table with them. They said sure, so I did. And they're still looking at me in a very crazy way. So what I did is, I sat down and I explained who I was. I introduced myself. And then I explained who Ramaiah was and how I met her and came in contact with her and what we were doing. It immediately changed their whole demeanor. They started telling Ramaiah how great her hair looked and complimenting her. And I could see that Ramaiah's embarrassment turned into pride. And that was an awesome feeling. So I ended up driving Ramaiah home. And as I dropped her off, I started doing a video again with her. And she saw it. And I asked her, I said, now Ramaiah, remember, I asked you what you thought of the police. And you said you didn't like us. And I'm asking you now, what do you honestly think of the police? And she said, I think y'all was great. And she gave me a fist bump. And she went on about her day, and I left and went back to work. Now, later that day, I posted a 2-minute, 40-second video to my social media account about what I had done. Well, it went viral to the point where Channel 11 News reached out to the Fort Worth Police Department's Public Information Office to get permission to interview me. Now, so that you understand this, police officers cannot just talk to the media. We can't do interviews. You can't do anything without your department's approval. If you work for a big department, it's going to be a public information office. If you work for a small department, odds are it's going to be your chief of police, unless they have another supervisor that is that point of contact for them. But long story short, the department has to approve it. If you talk to the media without the department approval, you will be disciplined for it. It's that simple, even if it is a good story. So the PIO office did approve the story and said that Channel 11 could do an interview with me. So they reached out to me, they came and met with me, and they did a little segment about me and Ramaiah. Now, what I'm about to show you is my video that I posted to my social media, and then I'm going to show you the Channel 11 story. And here it is. Hey everybody, it's Officer Damon Cole. I am at Southwest High School over here in the south side of Fort Worth. So I went on a disturbance call about a month ago. It's a 16-year-old girl named Ramaiah. And she was skipping school, very unhappy, because apparently she had tried to cut her hair and screwed it up and was just, didn't want to go to school because of it. And you know how kids can be. They can bully and they can talk trash and hate and all that kind of stuff. So she had skipped school, mom caught her, and then her and mom got into it to where mom called the police. So I got the call and I went out there, built up a rapport with her, and I promised her, I said, look, if you do good, you behave, you listen, and you go to school, you do what you need to do, I'll make you a deal. I will take you to get your hair done. So it's been a month. She's done all that. I came and checked on her yesterday. I called mom. Mom says she's doing excellent. So I came and checked on her yesterday at school. Her face lit up when I pulled her out of class. It was amazing. So I've already got the hair place. I've already went by there, got everything squared away. So I'm picking her up from school early. Got mom's blessing. I'm gonna take her, get her hair done, and just make her have an awesome day. So I'm in the car. We're sitting at a red light. I'm with my girl Ramaiah. Why are you hiding your face? She being shy right now. Why? You gotta show everybody your smile. Just show your smile and I'll stop recording. So you gotta move your hand, silly. Move your hand. You can move your hand. That, can you smile for him? That, see? Wasn't that bad, for real. All right, so we're going to get her hair hooked up right now. All right, we're here. We're almost done. I'm with my girl Latrice. She's hooking her hair up. She's doing an excellent job. It looks wonderful. She don't want me to show it yet, so I'm not going to. But I just want to give everybody a preview, and it's coming. And she's going to look wonderful. We're almost done, and it's looking good. Hey everybody, we just got her hair done, and I asked her what her favorite food was, and she said McDonald's. So went and got her McDonald's. I got her home now. I'm fixing to take her into her mom. But before this, I was talking to her when she was getting her hair done. I asked her, I said, what did you think about the police before you met me? And she says she didn't like them. So I ask her now, what do you think of the police now?
The job looks great.
You like the police now?
Yeah.
That's what it's all about. See there? Can you give me a fist bump? There we go. Bam. See there? One kid in the school to look at Fort Worth police differently, that's what it's all about.
Today, turning barriers into bridges, and to think this all started with nothing more than a bad haircut.
New at 5, our Robbie Owens is live at Southwest High School in Fort Worth to tell us about a police officer who turned a disturbance call into an opportunity to make a connection. Robbie?
Well, Gilma, the student at the center of this good deed that deserves to go viral was just too shy to talk to me on camera today, but I can tell you that she is beautiful with a $1 million smile and a story that's touching others, even if she doesn't say a word.
So I went on a disturbance call about a month ago.
Fort Worth's Officer Damon Cole soon learned that 16-year-old Ramaiah was skipping school because of a bad homemade haircut. But he had a better idea.
I told her, I said, look, I said, if you go to school, you be respectful to your mom, and you do the right thing, I said, I'll come back in a month and I'll check on you. And if you do that, I will take you and I will get your hair done.
So Ramaiah stepped up, and earlier this week, Officer Cole showed up to make good on his promise.
Her face lit up when I pulled her out of class. It was amazing.
Documenting the journey with his cell phone. Well, as best he could with a terribly shy teen.
She being shy right now. Why? You gotta show everybody your smile. Just show your smile and I'll stop recording.
The trip to the salon was a big boost to Ramaiah's confidence and also forced her to reconsider her impression of police.
She didn't really care for the police. She had a negative image of the police. I said, I want you to make this one promise to me. I said, never judge a book by its cover. I said, wait till you interact with that officer and then form your opinion.
And he encourages those on both sides of the badge to remember that kindness is free.
I always say, be the reason someone smiles today. I mean, that can change someone's entire day. And it made my day. Can you give me a fist bump? There we go, bam.
And as you can see, Officer Cole has already shared that video online, and we know that's where teenagers live. So much so that earlier today when we were out here, a carload of them passed by. A young lady recognized him, was yelling out the window, waving to say hello, and then told him, "You're so kind." And it just doesn't get any better than that. Live in Fort Worth, Robbie Owens, CBS 11 News.
If I see a video on social media or the news of an officer doing something good, I think that's great. That's the kind of thing we all should want to see more of. But here's the reality inside the law enforcement community. It doesn't always get received that way. The moment you step outside the box and do something different, something that makes you stand out in a positive way, it's like you just painted a large target on your back. Instead of being appreciated, standing out often makes you a threat, and I'll never fully understand why. What hurt me the most, for me personally, was the negativity didn't come from strangers on the streets. It came from officers from within my own department. Instead of supporting me, they would start rumors, or they would talk about me, talk down about me, and they would do all this behind my back. Never to my face, mind you, never. And here's the part that never made sense. The loudest haters were always the ones that didn't even know me. They had never ridden in a patrol car with me. They had never answered a single call for service with me, never even had a real conversation with me. Yet those were always the people who seemed to hate on me the most. It's one of the things in policing that's hard to explain unless you've lived it. At that time, Chief of Police for the Fort Worth Police Department was Joe Fitzgerald. And I'll be honest, I always had a positive, good relationship with him. When my dad had a heart attack, and this was many, many months before this incident took place, Chief Fitzgerald personally came to the hospital to check on me and my family. And keep in mind, I'm one of 1,600 officers under his command, and he didn't have to do that. But when he saw that video of what I did for Ramaiah, he retweeted it on his own account. So within hours of me posting it on my social media, my sergeant calls me. Now, my sergeant doesn't have social media, so he didn't see the video. And he called me and he's like, hey, did you do a video of getting a girl's hair done? So I explained to him about Ramaiah, who she was, how I came in contact with her, and why I ended up doing the video and why I posted it, the whole 9 yards. And here's what he told me. He said the commander over the South Division at that time had called him and given him a direct order to give me a direct order that I needed to delete that video from all my social media accounts. Now here's where the dysfunction lays in large police departments, in my opinion. At that time, the Fort Worth Police Department had roughly about 1,600 officers. Under the Chief of Police, you have 2 to 3 assistant chiefs, you have 6 deputy chiefs, and then you have 6 commanders. Now the commanders are the ones that run each patrol division. Now under the commanders, you have captains, lieutenants, sergeants, corporals, and then finally us officers. Each division was basically run like its own little mini police department. And in Fort Worth, the commanders had free reign to run their divisions how they see fit. At least that's how I perceived it. So even though the chief himself had retweeted my video, the PIO office had already approved my media story, my commander still wanted it deleted, and I didn't understand why. Well, I then learned that several officers in my department had filed a formal complaint with my commander about my video. One officer actually took the initiative to call Southwest High School to find out what time I picked up Ramaiah and what her grades were without her mother's approval, and trying to use that to spin it, to use it against me. How? I have no clue. So I refused to delete the video. My sergeant then told me he was going to have to write me up. So I told my sergeant, I totally understand, you do what you got to do. But this is the other frustrating part about law enforcement that most people don't see. Earlier I mentioned how the command staff structure worked. And here's where it gets real tricky. In law enforcement, you can never jump the chain of command. And I don't care if you work for a small agency with 5 officers or if you work for a large one with 3,600 officers. What I mean by that is, if I tried to directly go to Chief Fitzgerald without first going through my sergeant, lieutenant, and so on, I'd be the one in trouble. Even if Chief Fitzgerald came up to me and started talking to me, and I opened up to him about being bullied and hated on and all this, he's naturally going to want to try to make things right and do the right thing. But here's the problem. Once the chief would get on to whoever it is that might be responsible for hating on me or whatnot, those officers and or supervisors would immediately turn it back on me. And what I mean by that is they would be out to get me for any little mistake simply because I made them look bad in the chief's eyes. And here's the truth. If your supervisor or command staff doesn't like you, your life will be absolutely miserable. They will micromanage you every way possible until you either quit, get fired, or you just can't take it anymore. And that's the truth. And one thing about law enforcement, the command staff and supervisors, they, instead of being impartial like you're supposed to be, like when you go on a call for service, you're supposed to be impartial, learn all the facts, then use the facts to come to a conclusion. They don't do that. They work off pure emotion, whether they like you or not. So if they like you, you're good. If they don't, you're screwed. That's how it works. And it's jacked up, but that's the truth how law enforcement is. So even if I wanted to speak up, I couldn't. Because in this profession, skipping the chain of command is political suicide. So I ended up asking my sergeant, can I go meet with the lieutenant? Well, he informs me the lieutenant wasn't there that day. So I then asked, can I go meet with the captain? He then approves that. So I go meet with the captain. So I drive to the South Division off Bolt Street and I meet with the captain that was right under the commander at that time. Now the commander had just left for the day. Believe it or not, the captain had no idea about any of this. But I told him about that the chief had shared the video and the PIO office had already approved the story. They backed off. But the damage had been done. After I left that conversation with the captain, I wanted so badly to make another video, one that called out all the hate and negativity I was getting for putting myself out there, but I couldn't. In law enforcement, if you ever criticize your department in any way, shape, or form, your career is over. And that's the truth. This is how it was for me during my time at Fort Worth PD. Constantly bullying, micromanaging, and attempts to find me in violation of the department's general orders when I wasn't. From the very first day I joined the department in July of 2015, I was hated on. If not daily, then definitely weekly. Let me tell you something crazy. Back when I was in the Fort Worth PD Lateral Academy, a supervisor I knew personally, he worked for Fort Worth, and he still does. We actually started our law enforcement careers together back in the late 90s. He pulled me aside one day, and he was a good friend. And he said, Damon, because you're dressing up as superheroes and using your personal time to travel the country, visiting sick children, people are already talking about you in a negative way, and you haven't even started field training yet. Think about that. Before I even hit the streets in training, within Fort Worth PD, they were already officers and supervisors lined up just waiting for a reason to come after me. And he told me flat out, and I quote, watch your back. Now here's the part that makes it worse. You can't speak up about it. If you do, they'll come down on you even harder. They'll label you a snitch, and that's the culture. That's the reality of how a lot of law enforcement agencies are really run, and that is truly sad. I already had several current and former peace officers reach out to me wanting to be guests on my podcast. Right now, I'm finishing up the podcast studio, and once it's ready, I'll start bringing them on. Now, here's something important. Any active officer who comes on my show, I'm going to protect their identity. I'm going to disguise their voice, and I'm going to blur their image, and I'm not going to use their name. Because if their department were to find out they're speaking out and telling the truth about how things really work in their department and how things are in the law enforcement community, they will definitely face discipline, and in some cases, they could lose their job. So thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video and hear my story. I really appreciate the support. If you want to hear more of the truth behind the badge and the experiences I've gone through, make sure that you hit that like and subscribe button to this channel. That way you won't miss any upcoming episodes. Take care, stay safe, and I'll see you on the next one. God bless.